Ready?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order on July 27th, 2017. The first order of business is to conduct the roll call.
Mayor Donchis,
I'm here.
Commissioner Bergeron,
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Here.
Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second?
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of June 22nd, 2017.
Second the motion?
All those in, any discussion, any corrections, anything? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Before we go further, Alderman Siegel is absent, but Alderman Dean is in the audience. I think there are no other members of the Board of Aldermen here. Public comment, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to the commission? If not, we'll go to the informational item of the United Way Little Free Libraries Project, and I believe Jen McCormick from the library is here to address us, so just kind of take a seat and
as I demonstrate my technical expertise. So good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all read the memo from Mike Apfelberg. He did a really great job of describing the project, so I'll just add a few comments. We're really excited to be collaborating with the United Way and BAE on this. It's a way for the library and the United Way to reach into some of the neighborhoods of the city that have expressed a need and a desire for access to books and library services that aren't currently able to access it.
Excuse me, one second.
Yep.
Could you briefly explain it, because the
Oh, sure.
public may
Okay.
not know what...
You're exactly right, I'm sorry. So the project that we're talking about is to install 8 little free libraries in different neighborhoods throughout the city. And if Mike were here, he would have brought the little free library with him. It's about the size of 4 birdhouses. It has a shelf in it, it has a door and a roof. They are manufactured in like Wisconsin, and they're made to withstand weather of all kinds.
let me just interrupt for a second.
Yep.
I just wanted the record to show that Commissioner Pappas is present for the meeting.
So Mike and I chose 8 locations in the city that we thought, Mike calls them book deserts. Actually, 7 of them are maybe book deserts, and 1 is more an area just to bring attention to the project. So we'll have, at the end of this, we'll have 8 little free libraries in places like outside Lamprey Healthcare on Prospect Street, at the Adult Learning Center, at the Dental Connection, and there are 3 sites that are on city property, and that's why I'm here tonight. 1 at the Fairgrounds Pool, 1 at Labine Park, and 1 on the rail trail right near Nashua Pal Youth Safe Haven. And BAE has not only offered to pay a third of the cost of this project, but they also are contributing 50 volunteers on August 30th to put together and install and I believe paint the 8 little free libraries. The library and the Friends of the Library are committed to stocking all of the libraries perpetually with books. And Mike and I are working with the high schools, the National Honor Society, to identify volunteers, high school volunteers, that will be stewards of each of them. So they'll be in charge of checking them every couple of weeks for damage or vandalism, restocking with books, and reporting back to Mike and I any little free libraries that need attention. The cost of the project, once you work in purchasing it, registering it, buying, renting the post hole digger, the cost is pretty close to $6,000 for the 8 of them. The library's contributing a third of that cost, BAE is contributing a third, and the United Way is contributing the other third. I think probably a biggest concern is final responsibility for these in case the high school volunteers don't perform as we hope. And that final responsibility lies with Mike and I. And the library and the United Way are committed to maintaining them and also being open to moving them in case they're in a place where they're not used or they're misused. We have hopes of working with the tech ed departments at the high schools to build others or to work on repairs. And I'm actually working with Sue Carey, one of the school teachers, she has a group of students. She's going to do a geographical inquiry exercise and help us pick other locations in the city that could use them. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Commissioner Bergeron.
I love this idea. Just a couple questions, though. Who is actually doing the installation? I know there's a post hole digger, and is it a permanent installation, or is it a seasonal where it would be taken out in the winter? It's
a permanent installation, and the volunteers from BAE will be doing the installation.
Commissioner Bergeron.
Would that be our understanding that would be, who's picking the actual site? Has that already been discussed with you, Director?
No, we haven't discussed the actual, you mean the exact location on the site? No, we haven't discussed that yet.
But the installation will be done by the volunteers and not by the Public Works on the ones that are on our property?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's correct.
And so it is a permanent, not a seasonal?
Correct. Yep, they're meant to be year-round.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. It's a great program, and when I spoke to Mike Appleberg, when I saw him a couple weeks ago, he was very excited. I think one of the places that's referenced here is the fairgrounds pool. I think that's more of a reference to the Rotary pool. Would that be accurate? Yeah, I believe it is. Also, on the last paragraph of the letter in our package here, it mentions something to do with, in terms of liability, and it's a reference to the fact that each location where it is, the property owner would need to be responsible for liability. Is this something that we might want the city risk management team to take a look at relative? Because I don't think it's addressed here. It says, maybe it's already been done.
I believe that
Director McCormick,
I believe that
Risk
those
assessment.
conversations have already happened. I think Mike has spoken to them, and I've informally spoken to them, but we can get something in writing.
I'm pretty sure that my understanding was that there was a discussion with the risk department, but we can follow up on that and make sure that happened.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergeron.
Are we making a motion, is this just for informational, or are we making a motion to approve these tonight at these locations, or do we need that? I don't know what-
Well, I think we were assuming you would approve it, especially the one on the park land over by the pool. I mean, technically the rail trail is not a city park, but, so we're looking for approval at least of the one near the Rotary Pool.
Legacy and Labine.
Oh, and Labine as well,
Right.
sorry.
I'm in favor of it. I'm just, as long as the director's comfortable with it, as far as working the logistics with the United Way.
Yes.
I don't know.
So is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the United Way Little Free Libraries project at the following locations, either Fairgrounds Pool, Legacy Playground, Labine Park, and the Nashua Rail Trail near the Nashua Pal Safe Haven.
Second.
This motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick, and we look forward to the project.
Thanks.
So
Me
when
too.
this is August 30th? they're gonna
August
go up?
30th, yes.
All right, great.
Great, thanks, folks.
It's
All
the
right,
new
thank you.
version of the bookmobile, right?
Yes,
That's exactly it.
Basically.
That's exactly it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it.
I'm dating myself.
We now have a presentation from Tim Cummings, the Economic Development Director, regarding the Courthouse Oval and the one-way reversal concept.
Tim, turn your back on. Thank you. The Courthouse Oval is first on the agenda, so if
Courthouse
you don't
Oval.
mind.
Nope, absolutely not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the committee. For the record, my name is Tim Cummings. I'm the Director of Economic Development. This evening, I have two items that were placed on the agenda. The first item is just a quick update on the Courthouse Oval project. A little over a year ago now, this board encumbered a certain section of roadway off of the Courthouse Oval to make it more pedestrian-friendly. You have a memo in front of you that essentially outlines what occurred. I'm not going to go through this in any great detail, but just quickly hit the highlights. There has been no major changes or issues with the encumbrance. As you'll see on the second page, there is essentially a graphic that outlines what was done. I think we could say that there's been no impacts and nothing detrimental has occurred in the area, and continuing this type of encumbrance for another year would be what we would be looking for, especially because it actually plays into the reversal of the one-way roads, which we will talk about in a few minutes. But other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cummings, great write-up. I think this is what we expected a year after that we had done this. I think one of the scope was to benefit the pedestrian. But from an economic development standpoint, how has it benefited Nashua?
From an economic development standpoint, creating a more pedestrian-friendly downtown is an overall goal of ours. This is just one of what I would hope to see many type of traffic calming type of improvements to be made that would create a built environment that would be that would lead to a higher quality of life for residents when they start to live downtown. So you'll see Clock Tower, great example, right across the street. You're actually going to see new housing going in right beside Clock Tower in a year or so with the Pickering building. Creating more of a built environment in that area with pedestrian-friendly type of amenities will only help. The abutting property, I think, is a great example. That property has sat vacant now for I don't know how long. The market has spoken loud and clear on that in terms of it's not being a usable type of property as it is right now. It's going to need to be an adaptive reuse of something else other than office. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw residential occur in that area, and that Courthouse Oval area become something more dense with a higher and better use being residential. This type of amenity would only complement that.
Thank you. Would that facility, if it did move to residential or get rezoned for residential, wouldn't that go in opposite direction of making it more pedestrian-friendly? And
No.
actually increasing traffic?
No, the one rezoning doesn't need to occur. It could just be residential if it could be laid out appropriately. Secondly, no, I mean, you're gonna have traffic no matter what, but making sure that it goes into the property in a certain area and controlled for it actually just creates more space for people to recreate.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bergeron.
So last year, did we approve this for 1 year? So is it expired at this point, or
There was a one-year approval, yes.
Yes,
Correct, yeah.
correct.
who's, and so there's a lot of the picnic tables and the things there. Who's responsible for putting those out and taking those in? Or
It's
is
my,
that something that's been staying there?
so for most part, it's been out there. all year round to some iteration, to some degree, depending on what particular piece of street furniture you're referring to. I know the Arts Commission has put out tables at times, and there's been other types of art projects out on the site. But otherwise, Nick, I believe, back last summer, did a bulk of the putting out of the street furniture.
Does that stay, is that the metal picnic table type, does that stay out there 365?
I think that has stayed out there,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's 3 tables, and they stayed out there the entire time.
And then the temporary, or the art structures, is that on city property, or is that on the property of the owner?
It's a great question. So,
Because there are tables and chairs out there now.
yeah, originally it was on city property, and actually I just saw the other day, it actually now has moved on to the private property.
And,
Commissioner
oh,
Pappas had a
Commissioner
question.
Pappas?
Are you asking for another one-year approval, or is this permanent?
No, there was a 1-year requested last year, which has
Right.
expired, and we'd be looking for it extended for 1 year.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Is there a motion? Commissioner Moriarty,
I would move to extend the existing encumbrance for an additional year.
is there a second?
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And now, the one-way reversal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you should have received in your packet a memo with some attachments, which outlines a project that my office has undertaken, which essentially is right now in the very early stages of vetting out whether there is an ambition to reverse the streets in the downtown area. This is actually predicated off of a report that was done back in 2014 into 2015, the downtown circulation study, where VHB had recommended that we look at reversing some particular streets in the downtown area, specifically East and West Pearl Street, Temple Street, and Factory Street, basically creating a loop. And then we would have some secondary roadways that would need to be addressed to be able to accommodate that change. This is much like a domino. Once you do one, you just tend to knock down a couple others, and understanding it as a whole is important. So tonight, I'm really before you just to give you a quick update, overview, give you basically some of the feedback and commentary that we've received thus far, and ultimately take your input and your thoughts and considerations for this particular project. So on the screens, there's a quick PowerPoint presentation that we've been using to help guide the conversation. And I don't know if I can click with this mouse, but I'll do the best that I can. Can I? Thanks, that's perfect, thanks. So this is essentially the study area that VHB looked at originally. And basically what we're talking about is reversing Pearl Street. So if you were to come off the Broad Street Parkway, turn onto Central Street. Central Street, right now, you cannot access Pearl Street. You actually are forced onto, I believe it is Walnut, and then you continue on either down Factory or High Street, or whatever the case may be. So the thought process would be is to actually help people have a better connection to Main Street, which is a big economic improvement, and I would suggest something that we should look at. And therefore, to do that, we would need to then reverse Temple Street, and then Temple Street reverse Factory Street, creating a new one-way loop. That's essentially the major thought process behind this initiative. So right here, you can see the existing traffic pattern. Basically, this shows you the type of trip divergence that you'd need to undertake to be able to accomplish whatever it is that you may want to do in terms of getting to the garages. Here it is again, coming from the other direction. You can see that there are places where you have crossover traffic, and so you can have potential conflict. So what we're proposing is something that's a little bit more straightforward and direct. It makes it much easier to get to the garages or onto Main Street, reduces trip divergence. Here it is again proposed the other way. As you can see, it's much easier traveling Temple and then onto Factory and then on up into the Oval. As you can see, we have mitigated actually the conflict points by doing that. And essentially, this is just a big overview of the current, of the proposed loop that we would be making. So that's just a quick high-level visual for you, so you have an understanding of what we're talking about. To date, we've gone out into the community. We've had numerous conversations with differing stakeholders, both large and small. We've had a couple community meetings, one at the senior center, one in an office building in downtown. We've had 2 town hall type meetings on Main Street with various stakeholders. We've had social media, we've had some print media, and I think it would be fair to say that the consensus thus far has been overwhelmingly supportive. I would not say it's been unanimous. But the feedback we've gotten, I would say almost 80% has been favorable. We're still very early on in this project. We would need to go on to engineering, and if we wanted to continue on, this is just a conceptual design. But one of the reasons why we chose this project from the VHB study is because this is one of the few projects that we could make an improvement in the downtown in a relatively cost-effective manner. VHB had projected that between $350,000 and $400,000, we could make this type of improvement to help circulation and flow in our downtown once the Broad Street Parkway was completed. So that's just a very quick update and overview of the project to date. We still have a lot more feedback and community input that we need to gather. But today's exercise, I was really hoping to get this board's input and thoughts so we can incorporate it into whatever potentially might come forward for final plans for the project.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Pappas?
When you had your meetings, say, at the senior center and other places, where did you advertise the meeting? I was curious.
Great question. I can tell you that the senior center in particular was advertised rather broadly, and particularly in their newsletter. I know that specifically. But then I also know it was posted on differing social media boards, including Facebook. I believe a press release was also in the Telegraph.
Okay. Have you been to any ward meetings?
I've been to all the ward meetings.
I don't mean you, but has this been brought up at the ward meetings, I guess is what?
No, this has not been specifically been brought up at ward meetings.
Okay. Because the feeling I'm getting for people watching it, it's less than unanimous. I can imagine if you're a downtown business owner, that this would be really kind of exciting. But I think before we think that we're going to have broad community support, we might try such a presentation at some of the ward meetings
Absolutely.
first.
Absolutely, yeah. No, more community, more community conversation needs to occur on this, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yeah, Tim, just a note that I made with my current reading of city planning and urban design is that the concept today is to completely do away with one-way streets in the downtown wherever possible and go back to the two-way streets. That's the new concept, since the one-way streets have not really benefited the downtown according to studies. So I'm surprised we're just reversing the order.
Yes and no to that. Yes, I agree with you. If I would encourage two-way streets as much as possible. That's if I don't have to take on-street parking into consideration. And here in New England in particular, where we actually have cities built prior to good urban design. We have roadways that didn't necessarily accommodate the automobile. So actually trying to engineer our communities to be able to accommodate both needs is really important. So having one way so we can also accommodate the parking needs in the community is important. But as a rule of thumb, I absolutely agree with you. I would recommend two-way as much as possible.
And we're particularly talking Pearl Street, I would say, as far as the elimination, the on-street parking issue. Meaning, if in the section of Pearl between the Oval and Elm Street, were you to make that two-way, you'd have to take the parking off the street to,
To be able to do that, yeah.
and, there would be a lot of upset people who have businesses there if you took their on-street parking away.
Yeah.
But maybe we should look at two ways in other areas.
Happy to look at it. I can just tell you the trade-off will be to accommodate for it is because our length in our roadway won't be able to address it, so we will lose parking. And that's just a trade-off that the community would need to understand.
Commissioner Bergeron.
Is the, I'm always like, what are we trying to accomplish? Is the goal to move traffic to and from the Broad Street Parkway? Because that's a big problem. It's getting off the parkway.
That was the onset of
It's
this.
getting off the parkway.
And trying to create a better connection to Main Street. So
Right.
right now, you're coming off the Broad Street Parkway, and you kind of
I drive it every day.
at the end, and you make a left, and you're on Central Street, and then can we do something to make it easier for people to get to Main Street? That was the underlying premise of this.
Yeah, for the drivers, can we make it, is it worth doing this to make it easier for people to hit Main Street? Commissioner Bergeron.
Sorry, why wouldn't we, I'm used to my other meeting, we're just talking. I know we got the verbatim minutes. Why wouldn't we try to make, to Commissioner Moriarty's point, West Pearl Street a two-way? You have parking on both sides in 2 lanes. You'd probably have to eliminate one side of parking, but still keep on-street parking, make that two lanes, like I drew my little highlight here. If you made that 2 lanes, you could go down West Pearl Street off the parkway. You could take a right, come to City Hall. That's where the problem comes in from where I'm coming off the Broad Street Parkway. You'd have the access to the parking garage in here. Then you'd be on Main Street, and then you could have signage where,
So we can look at that. I can just tell you that on West Pearl Street in particular, there's a lot of pinch points because you have bump outs. And so I don't know if we'll be able to get the width that would be necessary. But
well, we have two lanes of traffic through there now.
you have 2 lanes of traffic
Yeah.
through there now, and you have parking on
Right,
both
well,
sides.
you'd have to eliminate one side of parking.
I can tell you that some of the feedback we've gotten from the community, the one thing that has been abundantly clear is they don't want to lose any of their parking on Pearl Street.
So then you could make it, then why couldn't you just make that one way?
We can look at that in terms of one lane.
I'm thinking of what we could do in the short term. How long you think this process will be till we do something? I think moving traffic off the parkway that we've spent $82 million on, which we, not, and you weren't here. but
Yeah.
Commissioner Pappas and I spoke repeatedly of, you get to the end of the parkway,
Right.
then where you're going.
We're trying to address that issue as fast as possible. To be honest with you, I think we're probably 1.5 to 2 years away before you saw anything. We got the next 6 months or so still of just taking community input. Then, if that all goes well, we would be putting it into the operational budget of the city for appropriation purposes. That's just gonna get us to a point where we could get professional engineering done. And so then it would still be the following spring before you saw construction.
But, if I could.
Commissioner Bergeron.
But that being said, could we consider short-term, would that be worth a study just to look short-term what we could do to maybe do something on Pearl Street? whether it's
Absolutely.
one or
We'll
the
look,
other?
we'll look at studying
Because
that.
I think that if you come off Pearl Street, and there's not, I know people don't want to lose parking, but if you had access to the Elm Street parking garage in that lot, right off of Pearl Street coming off the Parkway. I think that might alleviate some of the parking concerns, because of those bump outs,
Yeah.
and there's parking on both sides, you're not, I know parking's at a premium, but you wouldn't be losing, 50 spots, you're probably talking
Yeah, we'll look at that.
8 or 10.
We'll definitely look at that. This is the type of input we were looking for, so we can,
So it's not
improve
like
upon the
just,
project.
just an all or nothing,
yep.
Just in response to Commissioner Moriarty's point, even though the diagram shows Spring Street being one-way north and Temple being one-way west, in reality, even though that's the kind of the schematic, in reality, at least on those two sections, that would be left the way it is. I mean, those would both still be two ways. Now, the remainder, as conceived and presented now, the remainder would be one way, but those two sections would still be two. Anybody else? Commissioner Pappas.
This actually was a comment that I got from a resident, which I thought was a really good comment I wouldn't have thought of, on Spring Street.
Yep.
The problem there is that it's getting in and out of the post office. It takes people a really long time. It's not easy to enter. It's not easy to exit. And in the winter, when you have the big snow piles, this resident had said, you're gonna have traffic backed all the way up to the red light, and I think that was very, it is a very astute point. I would not have thought of that.
Okay.
And I understand wanting to slow traffic down, but you don't want to slow it down to such a point where you're running into intersections.
So the resident's point was Spring Street should be two ways? Is that what they were trying to say?
No, to remain one way.
To remain one way going north?
Correct. Because when people have to get into when you're entering and exiting the post office,
Yeah.
a lot of people will whip around in the other lane to get around people. And it's particularly slower in the winter when there are snow piles, but even when there's no snow piles, I don't know if it's who's driving in or if it's a particular, if it's particularly difficult parking lot to get in and out of. Quite honestly, if I have to go to the post office, I go to Merrimack.
So I can say that we've run this scenario both ways. We've gotten a lot of community feedback from various places that have asked us if we could look at making Spring Street two-way. And that was also another recommendation that was made in the downtown study by VHB back in 2015. I think we can look at it both ways to see how traffic is impacted, to see what might be best.
I think this person's point was that there's no way it could be that it's got to remain one way just because of the difficulty with the post office. I mean, I can't imagine it's very easy to deal with the federal government on switching how to enter and exit a post office.
Yeah.
And then you have some traffic coming in and out of St. Patrick's. I think that could cause some real problems on Spring Street.
Okay.
Once again, I had to go back to my point of looking at two-way streets wherever possible.
Absolutely.
And that would also be, even though that's not part of your plan, it's not on your map, but what Commissioner Pappas is talking about is actually not even on the map there, the post office. I see what you're saying, but I think it should be looked at as well.
Okay.
Sorry, may I, Mayor?
Yes.
Who has the ultimate authority? I know it's a collaborative effort to approve the one-way streets. Is that, do we know? Is it us, or is it?
I think the Board of Aldermen, because it involves traffic measures, has to, probably both boards have to approve in reality. It's probably the reality. Another little, There are sections that are two-way, another section that's two-way and would remain, which is between the Oval and, on Factory Street, the Oval and Water Street. I wonder, though, could Factory Street go two ways? I mean, we don't have a lot of parking there anyway, and it's a wider street.
It's a very wide
Could,
street.
could Factory be two ways between Water and Main?
We can look at that. I don't know. I'm probably giving Steve Dukran a small little heart attack right now.
It is a bit of a throughway there, you know.
I was just thinking the same thing myself, too.
Wide, and you got people at,
These are all great points, and we will definitely look into
We
it.
want them all two-way, we want some reverse, we want just my plan of the one street.
any other questions or comments?
No, I just, back to what
Commissioner
I've said.
Bergeron.
We've got to figure out a way to get people to Main Street from the Parkway. And
Yes.
that's, I drive that, and it's not, you know, I mean, that's just,
Right.
we discussed it, and I know there's a part of a bigger plan, but if there's any way, even if we just did the West Pearl Street in the short term, and I think the businesses there, I think many of those businesses on that strip of Pearl Street, people have never even been on that street. I think it's gonna open up a whole thing for folks, access to City Hall, access to the parking garage right here, and I just think that could make a big difference, but
We'll work on that. Well, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate your time this evening.
Can I just mention one other thing, which probably I should do in a
Oh, you
staff
are the
meeting?
mayor,
but,
of course you
um,
Mayor Donches?
Thinking about Commissioner Bergeron's point of something a little more temporary. You've got Walnut Street, pretty wide. And then the street down from the street just south of Pearl is Beach Street, or what street, what's the name of that street? That little street? Cedar Street. It's just a thought. Because there's another parallel street to Cedar that goes from Elm Street over to Chestnut, or to Walnut. So
School Street.
if you had that one little block of Walnut Street two ways, and you reversed Cedar Street, leave it one way, don't take any parking off. You could turn right on, I don't know if this gets us anything, but you could turn right on,
Right onto Walnut, left onto Cedar?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then kind of get into Main Street without, then you could go back up to Pearl, as a kind of a quicker manner of alleviating some of the issue. Wouldn't solve it, but maybe would make it better. Anyway,
Yeah, we can definitely look at
I'm
that.
sure Steve is, Mr. Dukran is, again, rolling over in something or other.
It's a good idea.
All right, any other comments, questions? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Cummings.
All right, thank you.
Wish you had something to do, huh?
Our next issue is the aldermanic referral of R-17-114.
I'll make a motion for the automatic refer of R-17-114, approving a third amendment to the site lease agreement with New Singular Wireless relative to its cellular antenna site at Mines Falls Park.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say, oops.
Okay, Matt?
Commissioner
So we-
Bergeron.
We had talked about this. So basically, we have one person who does not want to opt in? Is that where we're at?
Can we be more specific?
Just want to come up.
Mr. Caggiano?
Nick Caggiano, Park and Rec Superintendent. Yes, Commissioner, during the transfer from one tower to another, there were two remaining carriers, AT&T and US Cellular. I spoke with Bill Mansfield, the communications manager, earlier this week, and he told me that they had reached agreement with AT&T and they were going to transfer over. That'll leave one carrier on the old tower, US Cellular. He wasn't optimistic that it was going to be done anytime soon. They have a very good deal right now to be on the old tower, and they're not willing to really come to the table and talk about moving. It's tied up in legal right now. They're going back and forth with US Cellular's legal people. Once they do transfer at some point when their contract runs out, I don't know the exact date, then that old tower will be disassembled. I think they have 60 days after the transfer to disassemble it.
So until their contract runs out, we really can't do anything as far as, I mean, they have a contract to be on that tower, and
That's my understanding.
unless they're willing to opt in.
Mhm.
Okay. As you know, I've already asked the superintendent this, but I've had people asking about why the other tower is still there, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is
Any
that-
other discussion?
Yeah, Mr.
Commissioner Ackerman?
Mr. Chair, is having two towers an eyesore to the community?
I would say no, not really. I don't
Do you
think
have any
know-
idea?
I think they're there and you don't even notice them because you're so used to seeing something there. I think it's probably wise to wait rather than reduce or offer them an incentive that would reduce their payment schedule just to move over. But that's, Mr. Mansfield is the one that negotiates those contracts.
Just a follow-up question?
Yes.
Is your comment that we should wait, in other words, we wait on the entire proposal that's in front of the board, or wait until till their contract is over? I just want to
I was
clarify.
referring to US Cellular, not the motion that's before you.
Okay.
Commissioner Bergeron?
When this had come up, my concern, and so Verizon ultimately would be responsible for taking that old tower out, is what it boils down to.
Correct.
So if we just wait it out, they're still responsible for taking it out, it's just not sooner than later. And I'm not sure when we had approved this or talked about it, the concern was the city doesn't, even though it's not a problem having it there, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing at times, but there would be a cost at some point to the city if Verizon didn't take it down, so just being sure that Verizon will be ultimately responsible for taking the tower down, whenever that may be.
Anyone else?
Just, so we don't know when their contract ends, that doesn't want to move to the new tower?
I don't know that.
You don't know
I'm sure
that.
Mr. Mansfield knows. It's at least a couple years out. Hopefully, they'll be willing to come to the table and do that sooner. He's still working with them and trying to get to some kind of agreement.
If you would like a report from them, we could probably have them come in and go over it. But the motion before us now is to approve or to recommend the ordinance or the resolution to the Board of Aldermen. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We have Mr. Kaji already has come up. So we have Parks and Recreation.
I'll make a motion under letter A to accept the retirement of Robert Janess effective July 28th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion?
We talked about him at the pension board the other day, because we approved retirement, so he was, congratulations to him on 37 years with the city of Nashua, and good retirement, so.
Yes, I would like to join in congratulating Mr. Janess. He's been with the city since the last time I was in office, so he's done a lot of work for the city.
Yeah. Just on a side note, serving on the pension board as the liaison, it's nice to see longtime city employees when they retire and that the pension that they're receiving, and, it's a good feeling. It's a good board. Alderman Dean's been on that board, or had been for many years, but it's a good feeling to see somebody retiring after 37 years and getting his pension, and I don't know, it's kind of a feel-good thing to approve that, so.
Mr. Caggiano?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to add in, I've worked with Bob since I've come to Nashua, and he's always conducted himself as a professional, always been very enthusiastic about what he's done. And, that foreman's phone goes off in the winter, and I can tell you he has never not answered the phone when I've called him, whether it was 3 in the morning or 11 at night. So he's going to be missed. He conducted himself very well.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter B, I'll make a motion to approve the selection of Mr. Sean Simmons of Nashville, New Hampshire, to the position of groundskeeper maintenance at the Parks and Recreation Department. Starting salary for this position will be $25.41 per hour. Funding will be through Department 177 Parks and Recreation Fund, General Classification 51, Salaries and Wages.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Welcome to the city. Oh, not yet.
He's
Well,
already
welcome to
with
the
the
new
city.
position, yeah.
New position, yes.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter C, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of roadside and trail mowing services from the low bidder Cole Farms of Chelmsford, Mass. for an amount not to exceed $26,000. Funding for this purchase will be from Department 177 Parks and Recreation Funds, General and Trust Account category, Professional Services $22,000, Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Account category, 55 other purchases, services, $4,000.
Second the motion.
Discussion? Commissioner Ackerman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Caggiano, I think this is something that comes before the board year over year, because it's a piece of equipment we don't own, and I was just curious, have we ever done an analysis of what that piece of equipment might cost the city to have it be in-house in the service we perform?
We have. We can purchase it. We've had discussions about it. We've done the analysis. And it's really not the purchase of the equipment, it's the time, of taking someone off of what they're currently doing to have them do something else. With the amount of workload that we already have, it'd be very difficult to do that. So we talk about it almost every year, and we always make the decision to continue doing this, at least at this point.
How many man-hours does this contract include?
He works for approximately 3.5 weeks, so I'd say about 150 hours
Okay.
of tractor time that he
Okay.
puts in. This year, it's going to be a little more. The rainy May has created a tremendous amount of growth, and that's pushed out into the road and into the sidewalks, and on the trails. So this year, last year, we had that drought, and we didn't spend as much. There was still some money left over, but I think this year, we're going to be using quite a bit of that.
So Mr. Mayor, I've been cutting my lawn since April, I gather, but then in May, as you said. So 3.5, 4, 5 weeks is ample time to accommodate the entire?
He does 3.5 to 4 weeks in the fall, and then he comes back in mid-June to do a week of high areas, the Cherrywood Bike Path, and other spots which I can't just bring to the top of my head.
Okay.
We have some high-profile areas
Mhm.
that need to have this machine go twice a year.
Okay.
And so that's what he'll do.
So this appropriation will cover the balance of the summer plus the beginning of the spring, is that correct?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
I'm all set. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter D, I make a motion to approve the purchase and installation of fencing for the David Dean Skateboard Park from the low bidder, Gate City Fence of Nashua, New Hampshire, for an amount not to exceed $25,918. Funding is through Department 177 Parks and Recreation Funds, Trust Account Classification 54 Construction.
Second the motion.
Discussion? Commissioner Bergeron.
Just if anybody, I posted a couple pictures on Facebook, some of you may have seen, of the skateboard park. It is absolutely incredible, the work that's being done. I go maybe once a week to go look at it, because I'm still like a little kid, and I like to watch people move dirt around in construction. But it's unbelievable, the work that they're doing there, and that's
It
how
is.
this skate park is gonna look.
amazing.
It's like amazing. It's like putting in a pool at a high-end property. It's just absolutely incredible, so. Do we have a date, though, on completion? Do we
Late.
go- Are we
It's gonna-
going there?
Well, we're hoping for the end of August. That's our hope, but somewhere in that timeframe, or late August, early September.
But the quality of the work is
If
just,
It
you,
does
if you
look-
have a chance to talk to any of the staff that are working there, they're a fascinating group. They're all actually professional skateboarders in their own right, so they're all pretty interesting people to talk
there
to.
was
so.
people,
Yeah.
as I was there, because then I sat in my car, I made some work phone calls and business phone calls, and there were all kinds of people coming to look at it.
Yeah,
And, it was just kind of cool, younger folks, and then you could tell, like, people in their 30s and stuff, and people with little kids, and it was
Yeah.
pretty interesting to watch, like,
It
everyone
is.
come in and look at it, because it's gonna be, well, it already is, it's gonna be an incredible asset to the city and the park system,
we've had a number of communities come and look at it too.
I bet.
They're very interested, yeah.
The scope of it is amazing, really. The
Yeah.
size and complexity. Very good job.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm confident that the prior skateboard park had a fence around it, correct?
Yes.
And do we ever have any problems with vandalism at that location?
Not a lot, but a little bit. Go ahead, Superintendent.
We did have some, not a tremendous amount, but we learned some things there.
Okay.
With this proposal, we're putting in a mid-rail. So when you put up a fence, you have a top rail, and then you could have a bottom rail. And to strengthen it, we're putting in a mid-rail. We've also, it's black vinyl, and we've also added posts, more posts on the actual curves to help support the fence a little more. Some of the fence is going to be 10 feet high, where some of the ramping and the bowls comes up. So it's pretty rugged. We've increased the gauge, which is the thickness of the wire, more than the old park.
One last question.
Yes.
Is the park something we lock up at the end of the evening?
No, it is
No.
not.
Okay.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I was just thinking that probably risk management would insist on a fence around that park, just as a liability for insurance purposes.
I don't agree with you more. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But if it's not locked at the end of the day, I'm struggling with the full purpose of the gated fence or the fence.
There's a couple reasons for it. Again, if you go there and look and see some of the ramping that's in there, the fence needs to be there to contain someone on a board. Otherwise, they're going to potentially travel off the park and down a pretty deep way. And the gate's going to have, for an effect, it's going to have a pool gate latch on it. It's going to open to the outside so no one runs into it. And what that's going to do is not allow young children to go in there and potentially get down in the bowl and not be able to get out. So there'll be a mechanism there for that very purpose.
One last question.
Yes.
Last month or the month before at our board meeting, we approved lighting for the skate park. Has that already been installed, or is that a future project?
We talked about it at our staff meeting earlier this week. It's going through the process. And I don't want to say specifically because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's on ordered and
It
there's
is.
a delivery time, and they're worked out the electrical details with the school department.
Are there any other anticipated costs for the skateboard park before it opens at the end of August?
Probably the landscaping that'll have to come at the end, some seating, minor costs.
Thank you.
Sign.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter E, I'll make a motion to accept for informational purposes and place on file the various thank you notes from residents.
Second motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. We now have an informational item to be presented by Mr. Caggiano regarding the rectangular field conversions near the Charlotte Avenue School and on the field at Jewel Lane.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we've searched for quite a long time to increase the number of rectangular fields that we have in the city for lacrosse, soccer, little field hockey, and some cricket. We just haven't had the space. We worked last year on a proposal down off Gilson Road. It didn't meet great participation. People really didn't look forward to it. So we re-looked at things, and I asked the staff to really crunch the numbers on where we're playing ball. And what we came up with is we had these a softball field and a small baseball field at Charlotte Avenue that really weren't being utilized for several years. The numbers for the kids playing ball have dropped. And we also, at our Babe Ruth level, which is the 90-foot diamonds, we've had less teams there. And so we talked to both the Babe Ruth people and the other sports people, and we kind of determined that, the right thing to do is to convert some of these fields to rectangular fields so that we can get the use out of them and serve the public on what they're requesting. And it'll also increase the quality of the existing rectangular fields because we'll be able to disperse the play. So we came up with a plan. We worked with the school department, and it was coincidentally the school at Charlotte Ave was asking for field renovations there. They really wanted something done, so it kind of tied in together. And we said, why would we continue to do the baseball there when we don't play? So our proposal is to remove those two little fields. We found an old water source where we can put an irrigation system in. That used to be a bubbler there years ago. And we're going to work with the school department and with the street department and bring in some soils, regrade things, rip out all the old rusty fencing, and we're going to put 2 youth fields there, 7v7. It's not a full-size adult thing. There won't be really an impact to the school where the play would be after school and on weekends. So there would be no play there while school's in session. So we think it's a good idea. And if you go through the trail and you get to Jewel Lane, we have a 90-foot diamond there that, again, really isn't being utilized as much as it has in years past. And so we're going to look, and I may keep the backstop there. It's in pretty good shape. But we can fit a full-size field there as well, and that will be a future project too. So we'll be able to address the needs of the rectangular field users without looking for more property.
Discussion?
Nick, could you just remind me of where Jewel Lane is? I can't picture it.
Jewel Lane is right off Amherst Street. It's to the left of the Nashua Children's Home.
Commissioner Bergeron.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we definitely need more rectangular fields, and those fields at Charlotte Ave had fallen in complete disrepair, really. Jewel Lane, that is very underutilized as well, right? I mean, all the times my son played baseball, I think we played there maybe a couple times.
The numbers are down
Yeah.
significantly
Yeah.
across the state. Babe Ruth baseball's suffering. Kids are playing AAU, and the numbers aren't there. They're playing lacrosse,
Right.
playing soccer.
Are there any future plans for Navajo Field?
Not at this time, but that's another spot that
I think
we
that
could do something with. The problem we have there is there's very, very limited parking.
It seems, but you're sending folks over to mow and I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
like, what, no one's ever there.
It's a little neighborhood thing.
Yeah, but nobody's ever there, because there's no swing sets, there's nothing there, so it just, at some point, probably might be worth considering,
Sure.
even if it's just for the real little kids to play on a short field, rectangular, and keep them off of, Lincoln is like soccer field, sometimes a lot of competition there at Lincoln Park for that field. Everybody's down in the soccer field, and the baseball fields, most of them are sitting empty up there, and everybody's competing, so might be
Okay.
worth it for the little kids, but.
I can tell you the soccer council and the lacrosse, the blast, are very excited about this proposal. So they could
Well, even
have
for
more
some of the
space.
practices, if even, we've talked about Mine Falls with turf fatigue, and even if some of the practices, you could just get off some of these fields and put in and say, the practice is gonna be at Jewel Lane and Charlotte and what have you, so. Yeah. Great.
You envision this something that would get started this fall and then be ready in the spring, or?
I envision, we have a meeting Monday night at the Charlotte Ave School in the library, just to go over everything with the public and the school and the abutters. Then depending on how that goes, I think we want to try and do some of this heavy work before school gets back in, so that we can do it safely, and then there might be some light work left after school starts. And then we'll come up with a timetable for Jewel Lane. I've really been trying to focus on Charlotte because of when school gets back in.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion, or you're not really looking for an
Just an
approval?
informational.
Yeah. All right,
Awesome.
thank you very much. That concludes Parks and Recreation. We now have the Street Department.
Could I just ask a
Yes,
question?
Nick?
It might fall under Park and Street or not, and I don't think it's you. The mowing on the Broad Street Parkway mowing, that doesn't fall under Park Rec and us, does that? Or is that still no one's really sure?
There
I
was
don't
a
want to put you on the spot,
No,
but
you're
people
not.
that.
It's fine. It's a good thing to talk
It's
about.
a foot high plus.
The mowing on the Parkway was under, and Steve will correct me if I'm wrong, there was a contract, there was money still in there, it was being done, but it is starting to fall back on us now. And we've been trying to at least do the entrances fairly well. We went down and worked around the chimney area in the mill yard. It's a lot of property.
No, it's a
and-
ton of property.
and a
That's
lot
why I
of
was
the
looking, I'm like, oh my.
Over the guardrail will be on this brush cutters
Okay,
list
so that's
to
part of
do in
that.
the
I guess
fall.
I forgot that when Commissioner Ashman was talking, I was gonna ask if that was part of that as
So
well.
it's just more property that has to be maintained by someone.
And some of the trees that are on the parkway appear to be like, those were under some time of warranty. Is that soon to expire?
That's
or is-
expired.
It has
Yeah,
expired.
the drought last year took its toll on some of them, but there's still life in a lot of them. Some of the evergreens won't, but what needs to happen there and what my plans are there is come this fall when I have some time, I want to send someone there, and they need to have some pruning done, some of the dead wood removed, and some reshaping done, and a lot of them will snap back. Last year's drought really hurt.
So you've inherited the parkway, basically.
pretty much.
Okay.
No
That's thank you so much.
Street Department,
I'll make a motion to accept the retirement of Dave Burrows, mechanic, auto first class in the street department, effective July 29, 2017.
Second?
discussion.
Same thing, 37 years and a half service to the city. Enjoy your retirement, that's a long time to work.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows, for everything you've done for the city. So did he and Mr. Janess start right around the same time? They must have.
That's a good question. I'm not sure of that. They must have.
Yeah, 36 and a half and 37 or something.
Any discussion with respect to the motion? Has the motion been seconded?
Mhm.
Yes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter B, I make a motion to approve the sole source vendor Permaline of New England of Brockton, Massachusetts for various signs, replacement poles, proprietary items related to signs in addition to pavement paint, paint machine replacement parts in the amount of $25,000. Funding for this purchase is through Department 161 Streets Fund, General Account Classification 61 Supplies and Materials.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Solid Waste Department.
Under letter A, I make a motion to approve Sanborn Head and Associates of Concord, New Hampshire to perform engineering services at the city's landfill for FY18 not to exceed $80,000. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification, 53 Professional and Technical Services.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter B, I make a motion to approve the purchasing of recycling and trash carts for curbside collection in an amount not to exceed $145,000 from Toter, Inc., located in Statesville, North Carolina. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification 71 Equipment.
Second the motion.
Any discussion or questions? Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's great. I think continuing with the recycling program is wonderful. What I'd like to understand is how many recycling carts do we have on premise now, or in our possession now, and how many we actually sold in the last 6 months or 3 months versus, I just want to make sure we're not overindulging stock.
Oh, that's a good question. Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent, Solid Waste. We sell about 100 to 150 a month from the Solid Waste Department, and that goes out. And we buy them in about 566 per truckload, so I'll buy a truckload, and once the stock starts getting down low, I'll purchase more.
Do you have any idea what that stock level is today?
On hand right now,
Yeah,
probably about 300 on hand, so I'm about due for another order.
okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter C, I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Lawrence Fox of Greenfield, New Hampshire, for the position of Equipment Operator, Solid Waste Department. Starting salary for this position will be $24.75 per hour. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification, 51 Salaries and Wages.
Second?
Discussion? Commissioner Moriarty.
Superintendent, I was just wondering, with the hiring of this gentleman, should we approve it? Are we fully staffed in your department, or?
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I'm fully staffed with this employee.
Perfect. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter D, I'll make a motion to approve Northeast Resource Recovery Association of Epsom, New Hampshire to perform tire recycling services at the city's landfills for FY18. The estimated cost for tire recycling FY 2018 will be $13,703.75. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification, 55 other contracted services.
Second?
Discussion? Commissioner Bergeron.
Could we just go over what, for the public, where we got the, of what the policies are as far as bringing tires to the landfill?
Residents are allowed to bring in tires for free to the landfill with no rims attached,
Okay, so if you have a sticker, you can just bring them?
with a $5 permit.
No limit? Reasonable, well, I guess that was my question. Reasonable limit?
Yeah, a reasonable limit. I mean, we think 4 to 8 per family is pretty reasonable per year, so if they start bringing in more than that, then we'll start
I don't think I've ever brought a tire. Once I had my tires changed at a place, and they put them in the back, they didn't have, you want tire disposal, it's like $1 or $2, but they never asked me. I get in the car, tires were in the back seat of my car with light interior. I'm like, what? Like, no, like, get that out of here.
This is the first time that you guys actually see recycling motion going to you guys. Recycling starting to go up, tires are,
Well, that was
There to
my
get rid of
question when you were talking, when I was reading this contract or whatever, but.
yeah. So, I mean, this is the first time since I've been with the city that tires have actually gone up, so we're paying more than the $10,000 threshold to come to you guys. So we're starting to do a contract. And I actually noticed, and this is I'm not sure where the oops came from, but the motion's actually for a 3-year contract. It's FY 18 through 20. I don't know if you saw that in
It's
the
in the,
motion itself.
it's in the contract.
It didn't
and
make
it's
it to the
3
agenda,
years.
and I apologize for that. So I don't know if you need to read the motion differently,
Amend the motion, yes.
because it's gonna have to go to the Board of Aldermen for a 3-year contract.
Yes, we'll have to amend the motion.
One other question before we amend the motion?
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Was there ever a time in the last 15, 20 years that actually landfills could actually make money from rubber versus what we do today?
It was, if it was very minimal, because it's still a processing. I don't think, I haven't seen it since I've been superintendent, and, I mean,
I haven't seen that.
because there's a processing fee. I mean, they take it from us and they either chip it up and reuse it, or they use it for other materials.
And I don't know how we, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't know how we do this, and we've talked so much about landfill and what have you, and you can't hire somebody to police that, but at some point, that would probably have to be limited to, and I don't know how you even attempt to do that, because then if you're putting a person there to do it, but back to somebody bringing 4 or 8 tires, like,
Right.
change your tires once every, 3 years, if you had 2 cars, but I don't know how you'd even.
But some people have snow tires.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, if you
Yeah,
limit it to 8, or you just don't want anybody abusing it from back to the.
Right, except that most people, otherwise they'll just dump them somewhere in the city. If you go
True.
by the river, they always dump them too. But I agree that you don't want someone just taking them from other cities and towns and dumping them in the landfill. I
Right.
agree with that.
All right, so, I'm sorry.
Anything else? Commissioner Moriarty.
I'd like to amend the motion
Okay.
to include this motion as a 3-year contract, not to exceed $13,703.75 per year.
Second.
The amended motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Wastewater Department. Thank you, Mr. LaFleur.
Under letter A, I make a motion to approve the user warrants as presented.
Second. Sorry.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Under letter B, I make a motion to approve the purchase in the amount of $15,292.20 to JWC Environmental for replacement grinder. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund, wastewater account classification 71 equipment.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter C, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of new raw sewage pump Impella from Axlum in the amount of $14,250. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund, wastewater account classification 54 property.
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Ms. Osborne is here from wastewater.
Well, I was just curious, I couldn't decipher whether this purchase is to have one spare part, or is one down and we're replacing a damaged part? Because you said one is damaged, but you want one on.
Yes, it is
Okay.
damaged. It reduces the pumping capacity. It is still able to be used, but because there's a 7-week lead time on a product such as this, we want to make sure we have it on hand in case this impeller fails that we're currently using that's damaged.
So once it comes in, you won't be replacing it until the other one stops working, I take it.
Stops working or shows a significant reduction in capacity.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a
Commissioner
follow-up
Ackerman.
question. How long has it been in damaged condition? Just curious.
Hard to say. We pulled it apart to inspect it a couple of weeks ago and discovered
Thank you.
No other questions? If there are none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter D, I'll make a motion to approve change order 5 to the Headworks Upgrades contract with T-Buck Construction, Inc. in the amount of $17,452.98. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, SRF loan, activity, Headworks Upgrades.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter E, I'll make a motion to approve the 3-year pricing agreement, the amount of $43,650, annual cost to be $14,550 to Enviro Systems Incorporated for analytical testing for the industrial pretreatment program. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, wastewater account classification, 53 professional and technical services.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter F, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Oxbury Owl Environmental LLC of Barrington, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $23,920. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, wastewater account classification, 53 professional and technical services.
Second the motion.
Discussion, questions? Commissioner Moriarty.
Now, tell me why we need this expense. From what I'm reading, we need help on how to write permits and PowerPoint presentations. It just doesn't seem like if we have talented employees, we really need to hire a consulting company to tell us how to do this. So I know there's more to it, that's why I'm asking you.
Do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so this is for Rick Cantu, who has been helping us while we don't have a superintendent. So he's really focused on the process and making sure that the process is running correctly and working with the operators. He's also working with us as we're doing some of these major upgrades, such as Headworks and the HVAC upgrades and all of that. So he's been extreme, and also our issues with weather, which we've made a lot of progress on. So he has a tremendous amount of experience in wastewater, and he's not interested in the superintendent position. He's retired and enjoying his retirement, but he is helping us to oversee the plant right now. So with significant focus on the process. Noelle is really working on the permits and all of that, the rest of that, and any PowerPoints or anything like that, she's covering.
Commissioner Bergeron.
That was going to be a question when we finish. So Rick Cantu is staying on?
Only through December.
Okay, so he was supposed to be done this summer, was that correct, or?
His contract was through, I think, June or July.
Is this the
Yeah,
sole,
yeah.
is the sole compensation for Mr. Cantu, is this amount of money, or is there additional money?
No, this is the compensation for him. Yes.
Is there any update as far as the hiring of a superintendent?
We have a few potential candidates right now, actually.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye?
Opposed? The motion passes.
Under letter G, I'll make a motion to approve the selection of Mr. Matthew Collins of Nashua, New Hampshire for the position of wastewater assistant at the wastewater treatment plant. Starting salary for this position will be $22.41 per hour. Funded will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, wastewater account classification, 51 salaries and wages.
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Ackerman.
Does this now make us whole at the wastewater treatment
With the
facility?
exception of the superintendent, it does.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Engineering Department.
Under letter
Thank you,
A,
Ms. Osborne.
I'm sorry. I've had a lot of coffee today,
Yeah, yeah,
unless I'm
yeah.
talking fast, right? Under letter A, I make a motion to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you. As I recall, and I'll direct this to the director, a resident made a comment to me. He says he was recently surprised by his wastewater treatment bill. It seemed to double.
It seems what?
It seemed to have doubled in price. Took that for face value today at lunch. And I was just curious, when we had the wastewater fee increase within the past maybe 6 to 8 months ago, do you recall what that increase was?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but it certainly wouldn't have doubled.
Yeah, okay.
So, but if, and again, we don't send out the wastewater bills, that is through Treasurer Fredette's office. But I'm happy, if there's a resident that has a question, I'm happy to research that for them.
Okay, I'll let him know that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, he said there was some particular fee that, there was a line item and I just didn't know if we had any knowledge. I'll
No.
direct him your way.
Absolutely.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Under letter B, I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 to the construction contract for the FY17 paving program to EJ Paving Company, Inc. of Methuen, Mass. in the amount of $474,205. Funded will be through Department 161 Street Fund, General Activity Paving, Department 160 Admin and Engineering Fund, General Account Activity, Multi-Years Paving, Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Activity Sewer Structures.
Second the motion?
Discussion?
Just,
Commissioner Bergeron.
so we're in, we've added streets, basically? To the paving program, we've added some streets.
Yes,
The-
that's correct. So,
I don't
and-
see it attached. I think
I-
it said it was
oh,
attached.
it isn't attached. It
Mr.
should be.
Dukran is.
So we have the,
Because I know, I'm sorry, but
Engineer Dukran can
we
speak
did,
to this.
like, we've added Tinker Road, which I believe was an ad.
So we have Mr. Dukran, the city engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. So this change order is for an existing contract with EJ Paving. After we went through the last winter, we observed that Tinker Road had deteriorated significantly, and we wanted to get that in right away. So because streets within the contract were being delayed for one reason or the other, we went on and work has started on Tinker Road, as you've seen. And so it's 1.7 miles. The cost is around $400,000. And so we're adding back those streets at that cost.
I would say that Tinker Road was in very bad shape, and for the neighbors around it, we got a lot of complaints about its condition, and people really wanted help with this, so engineering and public works responded by moving that critical street up on the list.
That's correct.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dukran, could you just simply educate me? I have a good feeling for paving and milling. What exactly is a casting, adjustment, and replacement?
Okay, so casting refers to the manhole and catch basins, frames, and grates and covers. And you adjust them because you're paving and you're moving the pavement up or down, as the case may be.
Thank you. I got it now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pappas?
I don't know who could best answer this. The money we're getting from the state that's
Yes.
supposed to be used for roads and bridges, are we
Correct.
putting that right into paving?
We're sort of researching as to what, we've got cap issues and how exactly where that should be deposited. But its use is limited to paving and bridges and things like that, so that's the way we'll use the money. And of course, we can use it, as you know.
Yeah, my vote would be for paving if I had one.
Yes. We need to look at the specifics of the bill to determine whether it can go into one of the reserve accounts. In any event, I'm sure we'll have an
We're
answer to that
researching that.
question before the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergeron.
While we're on that subject, as we're veering off a bit, do we have, as similar to the Manchester Street Bridge, do we have any other bridges that would be, basically that are ours, that would be kind of red listed? Or do we have a list of those?
I can answer that. So currently, we have two red-listed bridges. One is the pedestrian bridge over the Henry Burke Highway. It's a Pennachuck School Bridge.
Yep.
And we actually have a contract that's getting started in a couple of days to get that work repaired, and we want to get that done prior to school reopening. And so that work is just to do some repairs and get it off the red list. You get into a red list when the rating gets to a low number, and you just want to do enough work to get it out of that listing. The second red listed bridge is the Canal Street Bridge over the Nashua River. And we don't yet know exactly what the work needed is. We have to do some exploration work. And so we're waiting on some funding through the escrow process, I believe. I think that's, yeah. So that we can start that engineering work. And then we'll estimate what the work is needed, construction work, and proceed to get a funding. Hopefully, the $1.3 million that we get from the state, some of that could be dedicated to Canal Street. Other than that, the other bridges are, none of them are yet on the red list, but with time, they're deteriorating, and we've got to pay attention to them as well.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under letter C, I'll make a motion to approve change order number 2 to the paving contract for FY16 paving program to Brock's Industries, Inc., Brock's of Dracut, Mass., in the amount of $2,058,630. Funding will be through Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund Bond Activity, Multi-Years Paving Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Activities Sewer Structures.
Second.
Discussion?
So I'm sorry.
Commissioner Bergeron.
That was the added list, right? These are the streets that we've added to
Another contract.
to another contract, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Thank you. In the motion, the streets are not listed. Do we know what streets are
It
involved
says,
there?
I'm sorry, that's where it said C attached, when I spoke too
Oh.
soon. I don't have the attachment.
I apologize, it didn't make it to
Okay.
this pack. Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, we'll have to get that to you. Should be under, yeah.
We'll make sure you get it.
Yeah.
It was,
It was prepared, and I just don't.
somebody,
Yeah.
Diane was told to pull it this morning or something, I don't know. I guess we had a list or something, so I'm not sure what happened, but we'll make sure that we get it to you. We've had a list prepared for a long time, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure
it's
what
been ready
what
for a while.
happened, but. This is part of the 7.5 million too, this 2 million, just so you're aware.
Do we know how many miles of streets that is for the 2,058,630?
Yes, it's 6.5 miles. And I can tell you this much, They are all residential streets, and they are in a deteriorated condition, PCI value of between 45 and 68, I believe, 42 and 68. And that's the PCI. If you remember the Stantec report, that's the PCI range that you want to go in and mill and overlay to add back strength. And you want to do that at this point in time because next it falls into the reclamation category, which could be 3 to 4 times as expensive as mill and overlay.
So when you're making a decision on which streets to add, you're going right by that?
Yes, we are using the Stantec report guidance, and just to give you a little background, being this late in construction season, you want to pick streets and you want to be expeditious about doing so. And so what we did, we went through the listing prepared by Stantec for the first and second year of the program, and we eliminated any street that would have utility work. We ran the list by Liberty and Pennachuck to make sure that those streets don't require utility work. We also eliminated any streets that required sewer work, because this will be major. This will put the streets into a future year. So we did that kind of due diligence and ended up with this list of, I can't tell you how many streets, but 6.5 miles. And we talked to Brock's, can you do all these streets in the remaining part of this construction season? And the answer was yes. They will hold their prices from the 2016 contract, and so we are able to get this done. And the whole idea was to get a head start. If you remember from the Stantec report, the evaluation of the streets was done in 2015, so we've made decisions on the funding, thanks to the board, but it was based on data that was getting old now.
The old data.
So we are trying to get a head start and catch up based on the old data.
Is the final decision of which streets get paved or added with the engineering department? For the
I
most
don't want to
part?
say it's a decision based.
Well, I
it's-
mean,
it's based on the-
logistics-wise, based on
on the-
utilities and...
That's
whatever.
correct, based on the process, yes.
If we can get those, because people do ask all the time.
Commissioner Moriarty?
I'll get that to you tomorrow,
Thank
Commissioner
I was going
Papasani.
to say, Mayor, the motion is for over $2 million, and I would amend the motion to contingent upon that list of streets being made public to us.
You heard and had you originally made the motion? I forget. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got an amended motion to condition the approval upon the list of streets included within the $2,058,000,
Second.
and that's been seconded. Any other discussion? Commissioner Ackerman.
Mr. Chair, this could either be directed to you, Mr. DeCrane, or you, Director. You indicated this was actually part of this year's appropriation of the $7.5 million, but we're going back to do a change order to an FY16 contract of some sort. There's a reference here that says FY16 paving program. Is that because it's in reference to a price point that they agreed to, part of that contract?
Right, so we had an existing contract with Brock's, so this was added as a change order
Okay.
to the existing contract.
Okay.
Because we wanted to, as Engineer Dukran said, we wanted to make sure that we got some of that paving done this fall, and in order to do so, we had to amend an existing contract, because we didn't have time to go out to bid, and we also looked at streets that didn't need any utility work, so that we could get some paving done this fall.
Not a problem. So is it fair to say that of the $7.5 million recently approved by the board and the city and everything else, that for this year, we're gonna be doing 6.5 miles and no other? or
We'll be doing a lot more in the spring,
In the spring?
correct.
Okay.
We're working now on a list for the spring that will include utility work.
And my assumption is that that will go out to bid, or might do some, like an amendment similar to this, whatever is better for the taxpayers.
We're planning to go out to bid
I see.
for the remainder, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But in addition to this $2 million, there's also money from fiscal 17 that we've been spending on paving this year
Yes.
as well.
Which was the previous motion.
Yes.
Correct.
So we'll do more paving this year than we've done than ever, really.
Absolutely.
So there's an amended motion, which is to condition approval on the distribution of the list of streets. That's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Under letter D, I'll make a motion to approve the additional purchase of manhole and catch base castings from E.J. Prescott, Inc. of Concord, New Hampshire, in the amount of $61,209, funded through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Activity Source Structures.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Under letter E, I'll make a motion to approve the hardship request from Liberty Utilities to excavate for installation of replacement gas lines on Faxon Street.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor of the, if you got any?
No.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion passes.
Can I just ask one question of the
Of course.
engineer while we're here? I see that one of the roads, or I've actually been in the neighborhood, Monadnock Street is being paved. And on the corner of Monadnock and it's the utility thing that skipped me a little bit. On the corner of that and Ashland Street, Pennachuck did a repair in front of, I think it's 70 Manchester Street, and that hasn't been finished as well. And the residents in that area have asked if that's gonna be tied in. I did speak with Andy Patrician, and Andy said obviously that's not part of our paving program, but the residents are concerned that the, Monadnock's being done and all that work, and then whatever, when is that gonna be done, so that corner can kind of be complete.
I'm not sure how far the repair is from the Monadnock paving,
It's
but
quite a bit, it's two separate things, they just were wondering if there's, how would we know, basically?
all cuts by utilities and other folks are repaired according to our standards. So it probably hasn't gotten its final repair.
It has a base coat, but it's had the base coat for a while. I guess that's, the question is whether it's gonna be done this paving season.
Yeah, well, let me check. Most likely it would be.
Okay.
Most likely.
I would say definitely yes, because I observed that they did the base coat, and then a couple days ago, they raised the catch basins.
Yes, thing.
Which said to me they're gonna be coming back soon, but Mr. Dukan will check it out.
All right.
And then just Sharon Ave, I had sent an email, I don't think you're on that, but these Sharon Ave improvements are unbelievable. I drive that way to work. No, I'm like.
I know, they're great.
It's a game changer for the city, for those businesses there and anybody that lives there, back to making a difference in people's, and, it was a costly project and more money than we approved a few change orders there. But it's a game changer. It's unbelievable. And I know traffic's a little lower and lighter in the summer, so we'll know a little more come September. I literally would not even go that way. I'd leave my office at exit 8, I'd hop on the highway, and I'd come around to exit 6 and do this whole big loop because you just couldn't get down the road. And for all those businesses and Whole Foods and all those plazas, for those, back to economic development, people got to be able to get to the stores and shop, and it's just incredible. So that's my thing, other than the jug handle needs to be mowed at Burger King.
I've heard that too.
Back to again, we have a beautiful project with 3 feet of lawn in the jug handle, but other than that, which isn't under engineering,
Yeah, so far it's operating really
hats off
well.
to everybody who worked so hard on
Definitely.
that project, because it's.
And in August, we will be holding a kind of a little ceremony to thank everybody who was involved, and, but we need, out-of-state people who contributed to that, so I think it's later in August, but you'll all get an invitation.
Well, it's nice, it was a,
I forget the day of it.
public-private partnership, and
Yes.
it was nice when things work out, even though it's,
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
yeah.
Gorgeous.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dukran. So next we have administration, which consists of the director's report.
Okay, Okay, so the first picture is MS4 stormwater permit work. We've been getting out there and locating and sampling storm drain outfalls to identify discharges, which is no small task. This is the new we were just talking about the new left turn from Sharon Ave to Amherst Street. We have had a lot of compliments. It's working extremely well. You probably noticed that we've done some paving on DW Highway. The northbound and southbound sections from Graham Drive to the Turnpike are being paved. This is Teak Drive, Scotia Way, and Blacksmith Way. Right. This is the removal of a damaged catch basin frame and grates, and we replace them and reset the frame in preparation for paving of the street. The Amherst Street improvements continue. We removed the existing median and constructed a new median, widened the road. The street department put in a relief sewer at wastewater. This is basically a bypass, so if we have issues with the vortex like we've had in the past going to wet weather, we can use this bypass. So they did a great job, saved the city a lot of money by doing that in-house. This is just the finishing of the sidewalk, repairing the sidewalk at wastewater. You probably noticed that the new light pole on the Main Street Bridge has been installed. It was installed on July 17th. This is a sidewalk on Reservoir Street that was replaced. We did a shim and overlay on Gilson Road, about 1,000 feet.
Oh, where was that on Gilson Road?
It's at several locations on Gilson Road. It wasn't just one location. This is a shim and overlay on Mill Pond Drive. Again, about 150 feet. And we alleviated some standing water there, so that should be a big improvement for them. This is the Whipple Street project. We were prepping for paving. Let's see some more work. We added about 35 spaces on Whipple Street. So that's another big improvement. This is Field Day at Holman on July 4th. We had about 2,500 people attend, which is really the largest crowd in many years, so it was a great turnout. And then the Slack has kicked off the entertainment with a 2-hour set of classic rock. Yes, it was fun. And the Spartans performance at 8:30 was right before the 9 o'clock fireworks display, which we received a lot of compliments on. People really enjoyed that. So we had about 9,000 people who attended, so again, a very well-attended event. This is the Nashua Softball All-Stars. They went to the state district tournament, and unfortunately, they lost against Wyndham at the tournament, but good for them for making it to the state district tournament. This is, again, we talked about the skate park a little bit. It's coming along great. If you haven't seen it, you should go out and see it. It's absolutely amazing. I'm in awe that actually kids are gonna skate, and adults are gonna skate in it. It's pretty amazing.
I'm glad my office is close by.
Yeah, you may get some added business.
You know, back to that.
Yeah, good for business.
Yeah, it might be good for business.
You know, when we talked about it all the way along, I just pictured something a little more along the, you know, in terms of size as the old one, but this one is so much more extensive. It is really amazing.
It is. We have the Wheels and Wings event, which is on August 5th at the airport from 10 to 2. There'll be a lot of public works equipment and planes and lots of things. So it'll be a great event if you can attend. It's always a big hit with kids. We had about 2,500 people who visited last year. So. And I spoke with the airport director, and he's ready to go. He's excited about it. The Gate City Brew Fest is slated for Saturday, August 19th. Tickets are available online or at the Holman Stadium ticket office. Summer fun continues at Greeley Park. This is the 60s rock invasion that you can see here in the crowd. This is a picture of the Gate City Community Gardens Committee along the rail trail. They maintain the gardens on the rail trail. So thank you for appreciate their efforts. This was an Ash Street block party on June 24th that was hosted by PAL. The department supplied picnic tables and a portable stage for the event. Trail work cleanup at the Temple Street entrance to the Library Walk Trail. Mindful Trail Day activities. We had about 35 people attended to help cut back trails and pick up trash. So it was a very successful event. We appreciate everybody's efforts. We have here are swimming lessons at Centennial Pool, session 1. This is actually session 1. We have, they come in sets of 3 lessons, and the lessons are run from July 1st through August 20th. This is the tennis camp at Sergeant's Ave, which has been a very popular camp. This is construction of the eastern setback wall at the landfill. There's another picture. We recently installed 10 vertical wells at the landfill, again, to keep controlling our gas. That's working very well. So just another picture. The installation. We do have household hazardous waste collection on Saturday, August 5th from 8 to 12 at the Street Department Garage. This is just an air leak repair in aeration basin number 3 at the wastewater treatment plant. This is cleaning out a catch basin on Ohio Ave. Sewer line inspection on Amherst Street. We had a resident who was experiencing backup issues. This is the Newton Drive pump station. We're just doing some preventive maintenance. We go to the pump stations and pull out the pumps every 1 to 2 weeks to remove any debris that gets caught. This is the level indicator check at the Newton Drive pump station. We check this in order to make sure that the level indicator is proper so that it will alarm if the wastewater levels get too high. This is one of the pump stations that is not communicating with the plant, but will be once we get our project done. HVAC upgrades are moving along at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions or discussion? Now we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Photo, quick question for you. Within the last year, I recall that Parks and Rec Department made a proposal to do something about the roundabout off of Broad Street with a proposal of what it might look like. Something to the effect that the previous caretaker was not taking care of the property. I was just curious where that might stand, because I do see signs on that property promoting that previous caretaker.
Yes.
Any insight?
There was, and I'm not gonna mention any names here, I'm just gonna speak broadly, but there was a plan, somebody had a plan to take care of that roundabout, along with Sullivan Farms. We've been asking them about progress, because we've been very concerned because we haven't seen anything happening. We just recently learned that that deal has fallen through, so Superintendent Caggiano and I have been discussing what we're gonna do, and we're going to do something very quickly. It's not gonna be anything fancy right now, but at least make it look better than it's looked, so.
Is it appropriate that those signs?
No, it's not. And we will be removing the signs
see.
and bringing them back to
Okay,
the owner.
all right, great. And since I had the floor, just another question.
Sure.
Along Broad Street School, which went through a major renovation within the last year and a half, 2 years, probably was last summer if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of clearing that occurred along Broad Street.
Yes.
But I noticed that where there's a guardrail, if you will, there's a lot of growth that's a little unsightly. Is part of the mowing that we approved tonight, is that location earmarked for that?
I'm not sure, but I can look into that for you.
Okay.
Usually the school maintains their
That's,
properties, but
Should-
I'll.
That
I will
was
look.
done this week.
Oh, it was?
If you
Okay.
come by this week.
Not since Sunday.
Okay, just, because I thanked Andy, because I had a resident, I had two or three residents actually email me, and one called me, and had those same concerns, Joe Curta being one. And I had sent it to Andy, and I got a response back from the resident yesterday that said, "Great job at Broad Street, it looks great," and, I've said, "You're welcome, I'm happy to take that one." He said, "Great job," but. Is it?
Your area was a line of sight, so we'll take care of that line of sight issue. I'm not sure.
Well, the guardrail is the problem, is that? what you-
I was referring to specifically the guardrail that runs from, I forget the name of that street, but I take it all the time,
Upstone.
Upstone, towards the entrance of Broad Street School on Broad Street. That's where I was referring to.
We'll look into that tomorrow.
Okay, all right, great.
He had texted me to say that it looked great, but it might not be the same.
Okay.
I haven't been to church, so I haven't taken the left.
Commissioner Pappas.
I had gotten several complaints about the same area, but I just wasn't sure how fair it was that we end up having we don't want to take over the maintenance for the school district either. But since we do have the, that mowing contract done, we do some sidewalks,
Right.
the same folks that had expressed concern around the guardrail. I also got concerns expressed on the sidewalks on Broad Street near Hannaford, because people do walk there. They said that it's a mess, and I don't notice that stuff when I drive by. It wasn't enough for me to notice it, but sometimes you have to hit me between the eyes before I notice something.
Okay, and we'll look into that as well.
Thanks.
Sure.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Yes, Director Foto, so we heard tonight that solid waste and wastewater are fully staffed. So I was wondering, how are we with streets and parks and recs?
We're actually we're in pretty good shape with the department. So the promotion tonight for Park and Rec, now we have a foreman with Bob Janess retiring. And then we also have a groundsman 1 at Park and Rec, so we have those 2 positions. At the street department, we have a mechanic with Dave Burrows' retirement. We also have the traffic tech that we may have a candidate for. And we also have an operator who was promoted tonight to solid waste. So I think those are the vacancies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you. One other thing I wanted to, well, 2 things. First and foremost, I sent you an email about a resident complaint about something at the end of his driveway off of Robinson Road. He extends his extreme gratitude. It was taken care of within 4, maybe 5 days, and he was delighted. So I didn't see the extent of the damage, but it worked out very well. Longtime resident. I think he's between the ages of 88 and 90 years old, so I think a lot of people know this gentleman, but we won't mention his name. Your presentation that we had with the Board of Aldermen about the Burke Street, I have a couple of questions, because a lot of information was shared, a lot of very good information. And I know that the plan of action, if I understood correctly, is to relocate all city vehicles to this Burke Street location. Is that
Eventually, yes.
okay?
With the exception of equipment that would need to stay, for instance, at the landfill and
Such as the compactor.
the compactor loaders, the end bulldozer, those things,
All right.
yes.
And one of the bullet points that said was a benefit to moving to this location was sole source of fuel for all the vehicles. That was a bullet point in the presentation, but then during the discussion, I didn't want to challenge you. It wasn't a time to, and I'm not challenging now, I'm just asking. Somebody said, well, they were a little concerned about sole source point for refueling all the vehicles, but then during the discussion, you had said, well, that's not really the case. So if it's not really the case, how can it be truly a benefit? I'm just kind of,
I don't know I'm not sure, I can't remember where it was said that that it was gonna be a sole source for fuel. We will have fuel pumps,
Yep.
certainly, at Burke Street, but the fuel pumps at the street department will also stay. So there'll be two areas where they can,
okay. Well, it was,
can fuel, which I think
it was,
is a
it
benefit,
was
so.
clearly stated on one of the upfront slides. Now, one other question, and I'm sure you've probably been thinking about this, and will continue to think about it until this Burke Street comes to fruition, is if all the employees for, let's say, the landfill report to work at Burke Street
Mhm.
and then go to the landfill, is that how you envision this?
Well, they wouldn't go to the landfill directly, they would go into their routes. And then they would, when they needed to dump, they would go to the landfill.
Okay. Am I accurate that if you're a CEO, collection equipment operator, and I'm referring specifically to the drivers,
Mhm.
is that the right title?
CEO, yes.
CEO. That something within their contract says that after they're done their route, they go home?
Correct.
Okay, so they might get done their route 7 hours into an 8-hour day, or maybe 6.5, or whatever, they go home. If they go home and we have temporary workers working for the city during the summer, where do they go?
The temporary workers will continue their day. They don't get pick up and go home, thank goodness.
Okay,
Um,
but they
so-
report to Burke Street. So when the vehicle is done its route for the day, do they get dropped off at Burke Street? Then how do they get back to the landfill? I'm just struggling with these efficiencies that we're talking about.
Well, they may have to go back, they may just have to drive back to the landfill, depending upon what they're going to do for the rest of the day, where they're going to be assigned. It depends. I mean, sometimes, especially when we have temps, they don't get out very early usually. So it really kind of depends on, where they're reassigned. They could be reassigned to another vehicle because we're running late in soft yard waste or something like that. They could be assigned to pick up trash somewhere else along
That was just my concern.
along the rail trail or something. They could be assigned back to the landfill, so
Okay,
they'll go, yeah.
thank you, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be
Yeah.
thought-out process.
It-
but
it
I
is-
was-
it is-
I'm
it is-
struggling with the efficiencies that have been brought up, but I don't want the city of Nashua to become a taxi cab service from Burke Street over to the landfill, or Burke Street
Well,
over to
I think the efficiency I was speaking to with the fuel is that if all the vehicles are there, Park and Rec is not driving to the street department to fuel. They have fuel right there, so when they come in at night or when they go out in the morning, they can get their fuel before they go out. I think that's the efficiency that I was referring to, not so much that we would just have one fueling depot.
Now, to that point, don't we have a CNG depot?
Yes,
We wouldn't be opening up a second CNG depot, would we?
no,
Okay,
no, we would not.
okay.
We would just have the one CNG station, correct. Yeah, and that's, there are still some, logistics that'll need to be worked out. That's a little bit further down the road. Right now, the first phase would be the administration building and then potentially tearing down the garage. And then that's quite a ways down the road where the garage would come into play,
Thank you.
so.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Bergeron?
While we're on that subject, what is the timeline, and maybe for the mayor, what is the timeline as far as what's next on Burke Street? I know we had that meeting. I believe the Board of Education, did they approve that they would go there, or they're just still in conceptual plans? or-
They're still in, they're still considering it. I would say that they are favorably disposed towards it, but they haven't made a final decision.
They've voted, I think, to move forward with working with the architect and exploring it more.
Exploring it in
Yeah.
detail.
So I believe that a resolution will be brought in, Mayor, to the Board of Aldermen
Correct.
next month.
Correct, for August 8th, to bond the first stage, which is the office building, and the demolition of the garage.
And that, I'm sure, will be referred to the Board of Public Works.
Commissioners?
Could I just ask one other question? The corner of Dunkin' Donuts in that area, I know it was the railroad you were waiting on, corner of Main and Canal, the little section over by Peddlers there with the brickwork and,
Yes.
and all that. Is there any update on that? The people in those condos keep asking who live back there?
Whether we're gonna do that section of sidewalk?
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to cut the trees down, but, I'm not gonna,
There's someone who keeps
but there's
raising
somebody that
problems
keeps
with
telling me that I can't do that. Those trees are not really, so we're thinking about another solution. And that solution would be and again, we have not talked to Dunkin' Donuts about this, and we certainly would need their concurrence, but we could potentially bring the sidewalk around behind that plant, behind the trees and behind that planting area, and we really wouldn't need much of their parking lot. So that would, and then we could use that whole section as sort of a planting area, very simple, so it wouldn't be hard to maintain. But that would be one way of trying to keep, the trees and everything there. So we do, Engineer Dukran has worked out a plan, and Andy and I just need now to go to Dunkin' Donuts and ask them if they're interested in the plan.
We don't have to involve the railroad where the tracks are there, because I'm talking even the area closer to Peddlers, the entrance to the name of the condos is slipping my mind, but whatever. I don't
Mine
know.
Falls condos.
Jackson Falls, right?
Or
Jackson Falls, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, well, we wouldn't go, we
Jackson.
wouldn't do anything with the railroad tracks, unfortunately, they should be fixed, but
Where
we
their
don't,
entrance-
we
Where their
can't.
entrance going in there, the brickwork is kind of, and looks like we went in and did a small little repair, and just,
Yeah, where there's brickwork, we will fix, but what we would do is take the existing sidewalk, we would take that out of there, and that would all be greenery, and then run the sidewalk, behind that. So, and it's actually a pretty good plan.
Oh, no,
think
that
it
would
look-
be
I
great,
think it-
actually,
I
if
think
you
it
could
looks,
put
I
the
think it looks
greenery
nice, so,
on the,
yeah.
another thing to mow.
Unless Dunkin'-
Another thing to mow, but.
Yeah, we would keep it very simple, so that it would look nice and wouldn't require a lot of maintenance, but that's what we're thinking. But you're right, that isn't, that,
Well, it's just everything's done in
That's
the
one of the things
area.
that really
It's just like
bothers
it's
me,
kinda-
actually,
yeah,
every time
kinda-
I drive
it's
by.
Me too, actually,
So-
because everything's done except for that little
Yeah.
corner.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Anyone else?
If I talk anymore, they're gonna put a piece of masking tape across my, I think I'm done.
All right, well, I don't see any other comments. We do not have a non-public session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye?
And the meeting is adjourned at 7:33 PM.